You can't even imagine how much the US and China spend on their megaprojects. It's not billions, it's trillions of dollars. Every year, these two superpowers pour astronomical amounts into building new cities, bridges, military bases, and even space stations. But the main intrigue is, who spends more? And the big question is, why? In the US, there are grand projects, like the high-speed rail in California. They started building it back in 2008. So far, over $100 billion have already been spent on it, but the project is still far from completion. What about the NASA Artemis project, which is supposed to bring people back to the moon? The development of the SLS rocket alone cost $20 billion, and the entire project is already approaching $1 trillion. China operates differently. In just one province, Guangdong, they spend more in a year than the entire annual budget, the construction budget of the U.S. In 10 years, 40, thousands of miles of high-speed rail, and China has announced 400 new airports to be built in 2022. But where will this mad race lead, and who will ultimately come out on top? China, which builds quickly and massively, or the United States, which focuses on quality and innovation? And most importantly, when will this money pay off, if it does at all? Giant military bases. While some countries are busy building bridges and skyscrapers, the US and China are building the military fortresses of the future, massive military bases that could shift the balance of power in the world. China is actively expanding artificial islands in the South China Sea. They're building air bases, missile complexes, and underground hangars. These aren't just dots on a map. These are key strategic assets that give China complete control over this region. In response, the US is pouring astronomical amounts into modernizing its military base in Guam. This project has already seen hundreds of billions of dollars invested. They're building underground bunkers, new hangars for bombers, and missile defense systems. But the most interesting stuff is hidden underground. China has a massive network of tunnels for nuclear missiles that stretches for 5,000 miles. These are real underground cities where hundreds of nuclear warheads are stored. The U.S. isn't falling behind either. They're building underground command centers that can withstand even a nuclear strike. For example, Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado. There's an entire military city hidden underground that can keep operating even after a nuclear war. But what's scarier, the Chinese military islands or the American underground fortresses? And where will this race lead the world? New cities from scratch. Now imagine the city of the future. No traffic jams, no pollution. Everything runs on solar energy, and autonomous robots do all the dirty work. This isn't science fiction. It's the reality that the US and China are building, but their approaches are completely different. China has already built over 600 new cities in just a few decades. One of the most ambitious projects is Xinan. It's a megacity with 100 million residents. There are no traffic jams, no wires, no dirty factories. Everything is managed by artificial intelligence. The US responds with its Telios project, a new city in California. It's being developed by top engineers from Silicon Valley. They're planning to completely eliminate gasoline-powered cars, and the streets will be just for pedestrians and cyclists. But there's an even more futuristic project, Neom, in Saudi Arabia. This is the world's first fully digital city. It's being funded by American corporations, and the construction costs have already surpassed $500 billion. So who will build the first real city of the future? And will people even live in them, or are they just more expensive toys for rich countries? Well, if you're thinking about quickly and cheaply building an office, a warehouse, or even a house, reach out to the professionals from the Manufacturing Association. System. This is a leading manufacturing enterprise, a company that offers a full range of services, from designing modular buildings and homes of various purposes and complexities to development. Designing projects, including interior finishing. The guys guarantee their work, which is really important these days. Hyperloop, or super trains. Elon Musk dreams of the Hyperloop, while China has already built high-speed railways. The Hyperloop is a train of the future that travels in a vacuum tube at speeds of over 600 miles per hour. It can transport people from New York to Washington in just 20 minutes. But for now, it's just a dream. The project is stuck in the testing phase. Even though Musk promised the first lines back in 2020, as of today, there isn't a single operational line. And China isn't waiting. They've already built 40,000 miles of high-speed trains. Today, Chinese maglevs can reach speeds of up to 400 miles per hour, and by 2030, they plan to create trains that are faster than the speed of sound. America is developing new high-speed railways, but even by 2030, they won't catch up. China. The main reasons are bureaucracy, high costs, and outdated infrastructure. So who will win the train race of the future? The US with their futuristic ideas, or China, which just goes ahead and builds? Secret construction. And now for the most interesting part. There's a belief that the most expensive and ambitious projects are the ones we know nothing about. China is building secret facilities in Africa and South America. These are giant ports, airfields, and military bases. Some experts believe that these are not just infrastructure projects, but strategic points for future conflicts. And what about the U.S.? Everyone's heard of Area 51, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. In the Utah desert, there are huge hangars where secret planes and drones are being built. So, what megaprojects is the government hiding from us? And what will happen when these facilities are no longer secret? Titan energy. Energy is the new currency. Without it, factories don't operate, planes don't fly, and megaprojects don't get off the ground. Whoever creates an unlimited source of energy first will become the master of the future. China is betting on scale. The largest solar farms in the world are already operating in the country. One of them is the Taklamakan Desert, where solar panels stretch across tens of square miles. That's bigger than the entire area of the city of Chicago. What about hydroelectric power plants? China built the Three Gorges Dam, the most powerful dam on the planet. Its generators can provide electricity for over 400 million people. That's the population of all of North America. But China isn't stopping there. Right now, they're building the new Baihetan Dam, which will be able to control the largest rivers in Asia. And in Tibet, they're working on the largest hydroelectric power plant in history. Its power will be 3 times greater than that of the Three Gorges. Water is the new weapon, and if China decides to cut off the flow of rivers, millions of people in India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh could be left without drinking water. The U.S. is taking a different path. They're betting on nuclear energy. Spark is being built in Massachusetts. This is a revolutionary nuclear fusion reactor. If it works, humanity will gain an inexhaustible source of energy that could replace all the power plants in the world. In California, they're developing solar satellites that will transmit energy from space directly to Earth. That means there's no need to build anymore bulky solar farms. All the energy will come from orbit. But who will win? China with giant power plants, or the USA with innovative developments? The most expensive bridges. A bridge is not just a chunk of concrete and steel. It's a symbol of power that connects cities, countries, and continents. But who builds them more expensively and better? The U.S. or China? China is building bridges in record time. The most grandiose is the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau. It stretches for 35 miles and crosses the South China Sea. This project cost $20 billion, and it took just 9 years to build. But China is building not just on water. In Tibet, the Sijufu Bridge has been built, hanging 1,500 feet above the abyss. This is the tallest bridge in the world, and it looks like it was built by aliens. The US prefers to build things that are reliable and expensive. For example, the Verrazano Bridge in New York. It was the longest suspension bridge in the world and cost over $15 billion. In today's money. But in America, the main problem is bureaucracy. Building a new bridge can take decades, while in China it only takes a few years. So whose approach is better? Fast and cheap Chinese bridges or super reliable but expensive American ones? Mega projects for the military. Wars are won not just with weapons, but also with construction. Both China and the US are pouring billions of dollars into military mega projects. China is building autonomous military factories. Imagine factories without people. Just robots that assemble tanks, missiles, and drones by themselves. Right now, Chinese underwater military bases are already operating completely without a crew. The US is betting on hypermodern ships. The most expensive warship in history is the aircraft carrier Gerald Ford. Its construction cost $13 billion. But the main weapon of the future is artificial intelligence. China is already testing autonomous combat drones that can attack without human involvement. And the US is developing laser weapons that can shoot down missiles right in the air. Who will come out on top in this race? Technologies. Next generation, highways. What will the roads of the future look like? China and the US offer completely different approaches. China has already built 180,000 miles of expressways. This is the longest road network in the world. Some of them are equipped with solar panels that can charge electric cars while they're on the move. In America, different experiments are underway. In Nevada, they're testing autonomous highways where traffic is managed by artificial intelligence. The road itself tells the car when to speed up, when to slow down, and when to turn. But the cost of such projects is enormous. For example, the construction of one expressway in California has already cost $16 billion. So, whose strategy will prove to be more effective? Massive construction in China or high-tech roads in the U.S. Space Race 2.0. We're back in space again, but this time it's not the US and the USSR competing, it's the US and China. China has already launched its Tiangong space station, but their main goal is the moon. They want to build a lunar base within the next 10 years. America is responding with the Artemis program. NASA wants to send people to the moon and then build a permanent settlement there. But the main intrigue is Mars. SpaceX is developing the Starship rocket, which will be able to transport the first colonists to the Red Planet. So, who will be the first to build a base on the moon and Mars? Who will become the space superpower of the future? Giant dams. Water is the gold of the future. Without it, there can be no life, agriculture, or industry. China and the US understand this very well. But who is building the most powerful hydroelectric power stations? China has bet on controlling the largest rivers. They have already built the most powerful dam in the world, the Three Gorges. Its construction cost $50 billion. This colossal structure can provide electricity for 400 million people. That's more than the entire population of North America. But China hasn't stopped. Right now, they are building a new Baihetan Dam, which will become the second most powerful in the world. And in Tibet, work is underway on the largest hydroelectric power station in human history. But there's a downside to this. If China decides to block the flow of the Brahmaputra, millions of people in India and Pakistan could be left without water. This is a real hydropolitical conflict that could lead to disaster. And what about the U.S.? Here, the focus is on reliability and durability. The main hydroelectric power station in the country is the Hoover Dam. It was built almost 100 years ago, but it still provides energy for millions of homes. But there's one problem. Many American dams are outdated. They were built in the 20th century, and today they are already struggling to handle the load. So who will come out on top? China with its giant new dams or the US with its tried and true but aging structures? Underground, megaprojects. When there's not enough space on the surface, megaprojects go underground. China is building giant underground cities. Beijing had a network of bunkers stretching over 60 miles during the Cold War. In the event of war, up to 1 million people could take shelter here. Today, China is building underground transport tunnels. For example, in Shenzhen they are building multi-level underground roads that will help relieve traffic congestion. But the most secret Chinese project is the Great Underground Wall. These are 5,000 miles of secret tunnels where nuclear missiles are stored. These shafts are so deep that they can't be detected by satellites. The U.S. is also actively developing underground projects. In Las Vegas, Elon Musk's Boring Company is building a tunnel network where cars will move on autonomous platforms. But the main secret underground facilities in the US are command bunkers, like Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado. This is a military command center that can survive a nuclear strike. So what is more important in the future? Underground cities or secret military complexes? Robots, factories, drones? Who will be the first to create fully automated production? China has already launched factories without people. There is a factory in Shanghai where robots assemble robots. Foxconn factories that produce iPhones have already switched to autonomous lines, where machines replace tens of thousands of workers. But China goes further. He's developing autonomous construction drones that will be able to build buildings without any human involvement. In the future, entire cities will be built without builders. The US is betting on hybrid technologies. At Tesla factories, robots work alongside people, and production adapts to new challenges. But the main weapon of the future is combat robots. China is already testing autonomous combat drones that can attack without an operator's command. And in the US, they're creating robotic dogs that can operate in combat zones. Who will win the race of artificial intelligence and automated technologies? Air highways. The future of transportation is in the air. Right now, China and the US are creating a new mode of transportation, air highways. In China, they're developing flying taxis. These unmanned drones will be able to transport people up to 30 miles without a pilot. Right now, the first routes are being tested in Guangzhou. But the US has taken a different path. They're betting on hypermodern airships. Unlike airplanes, they do not require fuel and can fly on solar energy. These airborne giants will be able to transport hundreds of tons of cargo across oceans. So, what will turn out to be more important? Unmanned taxis or giant airships capable of carrying cargo without refueling? Sea giants. Oceans are the main transportation routes of the planet. Both China and the US understand that control over sea routes means control over the economy. China has already built the largest port in the world, the port of Shanghai. It can handle 40 million containers a year. But China is going further. They are developing autonomous cargo ships that can cross the oceans without a captain or crew. This is a revolution in maritime logistics. The US is responding with its super ships project. These are huge container ships that run on eco-friendly fuel. They will be able to deliver cargo faster and cheaper, without polluting the ocean. But the main thing is the underwater tunnels. Right now, a project is being developed for a transoceanic cargo tunnel that will connect North America with Asia. So, who will be the first to create the new maritime transportation system of the future? Concrete versus technology. Speed or quality. Scale or innovation. Here's the main question in the construction race between the US and China. China builds quickly and cheaply. This is a real construction machine that builds millions of square feet of housing, thousands of miles of roads, and hundreds of skyscrapers every year. The average construction time for a residential building in China is just a few months. In the US, it's all different. Here, they can spend 10 years on one building, but it will be as reliable as possible. For example, the One World Trade Center in New York took over 10 years to build and cost $4 billion. China is impressing with its speedy projects. In the city of Changsha, they built a 40-story skyscraper in just 4 days. They used a unique modular system where each floor was assembled like a building block. There are also revolutionary projects in the US, but they are focused on new technologies, not speed. For example, the Icon project uses 3D printing to build a house in just 24 hours. So, what's more important in the race of megaprojects? Mass production and speed, or reliability and innovation? Giant sports arenas. Sports is a billion-dollar business. Both China and the US are building the most expensive and modern stadiums in the world. The Chinese stadium Bird's Nest, built for the Olympics, cost over $500 million. This giant structure is designed to hold 90,000 spectators. But the US has gone even further. In Las Vegas, the Allegiant Stadium was built, costing over $2 billion. This is the most expensive stadium in America, featuring huge digital screens, robotic cafes, and a retractable roof. In China, they're actively building mega football stadiums that can hold 100,000 people. Beijing is planning a sports complex of the future where spectators will be able to use augmented reality right during the game. In the US, they're betting on e-comfort technologies. In Los Angeles, they've built SoFi Stadium, which cost over $5 billion. There's climate control, the largest video cube in the world, and a completely glass dome. So who wins in the race of sports megaprojects? China, which builds on a massive scale and cheaply, or the US, where each arena is a technological masterpiece. Hyperfactories. Factories, they are the heart of the economy. Both China and the US are competing for the right to create the most technologically advanced manufacturing facilities in the world. China is building the largest factories on the planet. One of them is the Gigafactory in Shanghai, where Tesla produces electric cars at record speeds. They built this factory in just 10 months, and now it produces over 1 million cars a year. But China wants more. They're building smart factories where robots manage the entire production process. In the city of Guangzhou, there's a factory where there are almost no people, just machines that control the production of parts by themselves. The US is betting on high-tech manufacturing, such as the SpaceX factories, that build rockets for flights to Mars. Here, every step is controlled by artificial intelligence, and parts are printed on 3D printers. But who will win the race for the factories of the future? China, which is betting on mass production, or the US, where each factory is a cutting-edge laboratory. Airports of the future. Every year, millions of people travel by air. Both China and the US are building airports that will change the world. The Chinese Daxing International Airport in Beijing is the largest in the world. Its area is over 1,000,000 square feet, and it costs more than $10 billion. There are automatic facial recognition systems in place, and artificial intelligence manages all operations. Passengers check in without any lines, and luggage is delivered in just a few minutes. The US is responding with its megaproject, the reconstruction of Los Angeles International Airport. This is the most expensive project in aviation, costing $14 billion. But the main thing is the aviation of the future. China is developing smart airports where passengers can pass through biometric security checks in seconds. The US is testing hyperspeed terminals that can service planes with vertical takeoff and landing. So, whose approach to aviation will turn out to be more promising? Giant hubs in China or high-tech nodes in the U.S.? The most expensive skyscrapers. China and the US are competing to build the tallest buildings on the planet. In China, they built the Shanghai Tower, the tallest skyscraper in the country, standing at 2,100 feet. The cost of the project is over $2 billion. But that's not enough for China. They are building skyscrapers with integrated air purification systems that can create the perfect climate inside the buildings. The US is responding with the One World Trade Center skyscraper in New York. Its construction cost over $3 billion, and its height is 1,400 feet. But the big question is, who will be the first to build a mile-high building? China is already designing such a skyscraper, while the US is developing super-light materials that will allow for building without limitations in terms of height. So, who will become the leader in building the skyscrapers of the future?